Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the VRCade Podcast, the podcast by arcades for arcades. My name is Indy, and my co-host is Chan. How are you doing, Chan?
Hello, guys. I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. Looking forward to this episode.
Yes, definitely. Today we have Chris from IndieVR in the UK. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming on. We spoke a few weeks back, and I just thought you'd be an interesting guest to have on because you've been working at DNA for quite a while. And we'll just talk about how did you get into VR, like the first kind of experience?
Well, interesting enough, so my first VR experience ever was actually working for DNA VR. Like, believe it or not.
Okay.
So I had studied games design in university at Brunel in West London. Studied that for 3 years, and I was looking for a way to break into the industry. To be completely honest, as well, I was quite burnt out after those 3 years. So I was looking for something to do with gaming, maybe not necessarily, making video games, but anyway. So at first I tried to apply for CEX, which sadly didn't go the way I expected. I applied to 3 different branches with nothing back. And literally one time I went out with a friend. I had, 20 copies of my CV on paper, just ready to actually go into businesses, hand out my CV. No luck. And one time I went on LinkedIn and I saw the ad for DNA VR. And I was like, VR arcade, it's something I'd never heard of because it was a relatively still new concept at the time. But I knew what an arcade was. I was like, hell yeah, why not give this a shot? So I applied for it, sent in my CV. I was lucky enough to be interviewed. Went to the interview, got the job. And my first ever time playing VR, funny story. So my first training shift, I had about 2 hours of sleep. So I was completely sleep deprived. And one of the first things I had to do after obviously introducing myself, etc., was put on a VR headset and play. My first game I ever played was Beat Saber. Bear in mind, again, I was 2 hours of sleep. So I was completely out of it.
Yeah.
And, growing up, like I've been playing video games since I was about 3 years old. My first game, I think, was Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo.
I remember that.
And one particular genre of game that I really enjoyed was the rhythm genre. So things like Dance Dance Revolution, for instance, or something like Guitar Hero. So being able to play a rhythm game in VR as my first ever experience was completely wild. Bear in mind, again, 2 hours of sleep. I just saw shapes and colors coming towards me. I had no idea what was happening, but hey, like by instinct, my body did it. So that was actually my first time ever using a VR headset. I'd heard of it before on YouTube. So I know that PewDiePie, for example, I think he used like the Oculus Rift, back in maybe 2015, 14, 13.
Yeah.
But I'd never actually tried it myself. That was my first ever VR experience. 2 hours of sleep on Beat Saber, and then I think I played like Arizona and a bunch of other games. So yeah, pretty wild.
So are you an expert Beat Saber player now?
I would love to say so. To be honest, no. As much as I've played it, I've put like, tens of hours, if not hundreds of hours into it. I'm still, amateur, I would say. I knew someone that worked for us. His name was Sam, bless him. Shout out to Sam. He could do, I think it was Breezer or Rum and Bass, one of like the, quintessential Beat Saber songs, one-handed on expert. And I watched him do it, and that was phenomenal. Myself, I would say I'm pretty average at it, despite, embarrassingly putting many hours into Beat Saber. I'm pretty average, I would say.
Yeah.
Really interesting that you started out by, trying to be a game developer. Do you think that kind of helped you during your job? And if so, how?
That's the thing. I think being able to see gaming in a completely different light than I'd ever imagined. I grew up with console gaming, and then eventually it turned into PC gaming. Being able to see gaming in a completely different platform altogether in the form of virtual reality, it kind of made me question whether or not, okay, do I want to develop games for consoles, or do I want to actually start developing games for VR? Like at the moment, I'm kind of still in free fall, still kind of thinking about it. I think it's helped me a ton. It's opened up my eyes to see that there's a lot more than just, console gaming. You've got VR, you've got mobile gaming, you've got plenty of different stuff out there. And I think it's definitely helped open up my eyes and seeing, what kind of possibilities there are out there, and being able to try a bunch of different virtual, reality, not just games, but maybe even experiences as well, like cinematic experiences like Apollo 11, where you can relive the landing on the moon of 1969, or the Blue, where you're underwater surrounded by, sea creatures. You're not necessarily having to do a lot, but it's definitely, expanded my mind. Let's just say that.
Definitely, yes. And then onto the arcade now at DNA VR. What is the setup at your location? What does it look like?
So it is quite vast. So our main two experiences take place in room scale setups in booths. So I'll give you an example from our Battersea venue, which is our flagship venue in London. So we have 11 booths in total, which will each have their own headset, remotes, that sort of stuff. We run two types of experiences. So the first one is the VRCade. So this is between 1 and 11 players. They will have access to around 40 different games that they can switch between freely during an hour. They can also, of course, book for 2, 3, 4. These games range in genre, difficulty, etc. So we have things like, zombie shooting, archery, we've got painting, we've got cooking, drumming, cinematic experiences. You can walk the earth with dinosaurs. You've got plenty of different choices. So it can cater, from anyone from the age of, like, let's say 7, that typically enjoys games like, Roblox, Minecraft, to maybe a 90-year-old that has never tried VR in their life and is looking for something to kind of ease them in, as opposed to playing something, crazy like Arizona where they're slaying zombies. Maybe they just want to do skiing or kayaking. So that's one experience. We do also offer VR escape rooms as well. So to give you an idea of how big the pods are, they're about 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters. They're an open square with a doorway. So it gives them plenty of space to maneuver around without, hitting their partner or friend or family, or hitting the walls. It still does happen naturally because it's so immersive. But yeah, with the VR escape rooms, so it's usually 2 to 6 players this time. They've got about 12 different themes to choose from. They would work together as a team virtually, all connected, and they would try to escape within an hour as fast as they can. We do also have a free roaming section at each of our venues, which is just a large open room, as you know, where they have wireless headsets. They can physically walk around together. And in the free roam, we either have a choice of like 8 different escape rooms, or we also have like zombie shooters as well for those that are more into action, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much a description of all our venues. We've got room scale booths for the arcade and the escape room sessions, and then we've got a free room which offers completely different experiences altogether.
And where are the venues located?
So we have 3 in London. So our very first one that opened in 2017 is located in Camden, so North London. Mm-hmm. Then I think in the midst of the pandemic, we opened up Hammersmith and Battersea. So Hammersmith was opened I want to say like summer 2020. I think it was just after the first lockdown or so. And then Battersea was around that time as well. And then we recently, so last April, I want to say, we opened up a venue in Manchester as well. So obviously we're looking to expand past London, but so far 4 venues and hopefully continuing to expand on that.
Nice. And so you've been there for how many years?
So I joined in September 2019. So this September will be my 5th year, but I've been here 4 years now. So I've seen quite a lot.
So you've also seen the pandemic come and go?
Yes. And we were very fortunate because, with entertainment venues, they were the first to close and then the last to reopen as well. So, we were forced to kind of adapt to the situation. So I think it was, I want to say like after the first or second lockdown, we had like a pop-up experience just around the corner from our Battersea venue. And legally we were allowed to do it to kind of give people a taste of how, what we do. It was mainly like our free roaming experience. It was one of our shooters where they can like physically walk around together, shoot stuff. Um, but it was pretty rough, and not being certain of whether your job was on the line or not because of the pandemic, that was pretty scary as well. But luckily, through everything and by the grace of God, we were able to reopen the venue, and we're still hanging in there. So thankfully, yeah, we managed to survive.
What's the
Yeah.
most? Sorry, John.
No, just go. Sorry.
I was just going to ask you what the most. What do people go for the most? Like the top few games that people play in your arcade.
So I would probably say the most popular experience in general is the VRCade experience, where you have the 40 different games. Just because what I typically recommend to customers, especially if they haven't really done something like this before, instead of committing to an hour or 45 minutes of one experience where you may, and in most cases they will enjoy it. It's very rare that someone kind of goes, that was not really what I was looking for. I pitch the fact that you have 1 hour, you've got 40 games or experiences that you can literally switch between at any point. You're not committed to one thing for the whole hour. And there's so many different things you can try. Of course, a lot of it is shooting. That is the most popular, genre.
Yeah.
But we do also have other things. So I would say the arcade typically is the most popular experience. But we do also get quite a lot of escape room bookings as well, because a lot of them would have done physical escape rooms before, and being able to then, try it in VR and have the environment be completely different. There's so many things you can achieve in VR escape rooms that you couldn't in real life for obvious reasons. I think that is also like a very close second. The free roam, I think can also be quite popular, but because it's relatively newer and it's quite a premium experience, it tends to be quite pricier. Just because, again, licensing costs, all that stuff, that is probably the least popular experience. But in my opinion, the coolest experience, because again, a lot of the VR stuff you can do at home, just get a headset, you can do it in your own space, but being able to physically move around with a bunch of people with you, like friends, family, and either shoot stuff or do VR escape rooms, that kind of stuff, is taking it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
So I would say, arcade, most popular. Then it's the escape room, VR escape room is probably a close second, and then free roam is the last, unfortunately. But I think that's kind of what the VR arcades are gearing towards in the future, is free roaming. So eventually I think it's going to be like the biggest thing going.
Yeah. And since the pandemic, do you guys have some kind of a resurgence again? Do you see more customers coming in every year? Or is it, kind of the similar experience for the last few
I
years?
would say so. So, to be completely honest with you, I joined a few months before the pandemic itself. So I wasn't in the company, in 2017 when we had opened. But I'd imagine, yeah, like every year we are getting more and more, custom. We're getting more people that have never been to DNA VR or have even tried VR before. Like every single day I'm on shift working as, like a VR master or a host, I'm meeting customers that have never played video games, never played VR, never done escape rooms. So I would say, yeah, we're definitely getting, a lot more business, over the years, through word of mouth or other things like that. I would love to make a comparison, to way pre-pandemic. Sadly, I wasn't here, but I'd imagine that's definitely what would the answer would be. Yes, it's a an upward hill, I would say, in terms of growth.
Yeah. And on the topic of the games, what kind of licensing platforms do you guys use?
So for the VR arcade, we use Springboard VR. It's something that we've used pretty much since the beginning. For VR escape rooms, we do use both ARVI, which is a pretty popular platform amongst most VR arcades. We also work with Ubisoft VR escape rooms as well. So those are phenomenal, to say the least. And then we work with VRCade, which again is a very popular VR platform for free roaming VR escape rooms. And then we also work with Haze, which is Vertigo Games free roaming software as well. So we work with quite a few different companies. Springboard, obviously, I think we've worked with the longest. Yeah, I want to say Springboard was the longest. Before we had AR, VI, I think we used like Steam VR escape rooms, like Tales of Escape, that kind of stuff. So yeah, those are the companies that we're currently working with to provide our games and experiences.
Do you have?
Do you think it's complicating for the game masters to have, a lot of different platforms to use? And yeah, if so, then how do you tackle this problem?
Yeah, I definitely think it's not the easiest thing. When I first joined back in 2019, I think we had Springboard for sure. We then had I think we had ARVI at the time. We didn't have Ubisoft. I think that it wasn't a thing back then. And then we had like VRCade. So typically we try and teach our staff members like a little bit at a time. The free roam is typically the last thing they would learn, just because there's a lot more steps involved. And in terms of customer safety, there's a lot more risks with them being able to, run around and, maybe headbutt each other. It is a difficult task, but we take it, bit by bit, slowly but surely. We teach them, the most popular thing first. So again, Springboard for the VRCade. We try and get them to play through a bunch of different games to get themselves familiar with the UI, with setting up, how to help customers, that kind of thing. We also have like guides written for each of the games. So not only the controls, but also troubleshooting, because certain games have maybe, more prevalent glitches within them that we're aware of, especially older games, and being able to provide them the solution, even if it's just written down somewhere in a doc, I think is really useful. With the ARVI and also the Ubisoft VR escape rooms, they themselves have provided us guides as well. So typically we like to let our staff members try each of the escape rooms, again, to familiarize with themselves with the environment and also how to solve the puzzles. But unfortunately, given the nature of the business, there just purely isn't enough time to go through every single one. So luckily, ARVI, Ubisoft, and VRCade have given us, written guides, some with screenshots as well. So if a particular staff member hasn't run one type of escape room, they can see how it's all going to be done just on that doc. We try again to get them to play as many as they can. So even if they're not familiar with the escape room, they're familiar with the, the puzzle logic, that sort of stuff. So it definitely is a challenge. It's not something that gets easier, especially because, again, we're looking to always constantly expand our library. So there's always going to be more games, more this, more that. But at the same time, we try and make sure that there is enough, material for them to read through in case there's a game they haven't ran before, etc. And we always teach them to be, honest with the customers. There's more than 50 experiences that we run at our arcades. You're only human. You're not going to be able to remember every specific detail. Just be honest with them. I haven't really played this too much before. I haven't really ran it too much before. I've got the material here. Let's work through it together. That's the kind of thing that we'd expect, just because, again, we have a lot of stuff. It's reasonable to assume you're not going to remember everything. Even myself, I've been here, almost 5 years. There's things that even I forget to this day. There's games that haven't been played for, ages that suddenly someone wants to choose that I haven't learned. So we try and, again, to tackle this, we try and write guides or have guides ready for our staff members in case they run into a game or experience that they haven't been able to play themselves because of time or haven't been able to run, so they don't get too stuck. So yeah, it is a problem, but it's something that we actively, work to try and help our staff members and the customers as well.
Yeah. And what would you say is the most user-friendly platform then, like the easiest to learn for someone who's like a new game master?
I would probably say ARVI, purely because of the fact that their launcher, and this is version 2, because I remember when I first joined, it was a lot more complicated. Nowadays, it's just, you press create a session, you choose what day of the week it is, because our pricing is tiered depending on what time of the week they book for. You choose how long you want the session to run for, you choose which escape room, you press launch. That's pretty much it. With Springboard, it's not so much the setting up of the session that's complicated. It's more of again, having knowledge of each of the 40 plus games that can be quite overwhelming. I would say, yeah, ARVI has tools where you can add or remove time. You can force a hint if you need to, although typically we're always active, so we give them hints. ARVI has the ability to remove or add players very easily. If, for example, a player feels sick, they no longer want to be a part of it, you can easily remove them. If that player then suddenly decides, oh, you know what, I'm feeling better, you can easily add them back in with no hassle whatsoever. I think, yeah, ARVI, I would say, is probably the most simple platform to teach to staff members. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I think ARVI would probably be the best in terms of, yeah, easily being able to teach it to staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I can guess the answer for the next question, but still I'm going to ask it. Is there a lot of competition around the locations that you guys have?
There's quite a few other companies in London. In terms of competition, it's hard to say, just because of the fact that we are quite different to the other, companies in London. We offer quite a bit more experiences, like a wider variety of experiences. So again, it's not just purely, games. As lovely as it is, again, a lot of people that come through our doors have never played video games or, tried these kinds of things before. So I think that having different experiences like VR escape rooms, like cinematic experiences, like I mentioned earlier, painting, those sorts of games where you're not having to constantly worry about someone trying to come and murder you in VR, where you can just at your own leisure paint stuff or cook or whatever. Yeah, I'd say there is competition in the sense that they are also operating, multiple VR experiences, but at the same time, I think it's just completely different, like, ideas happening in our place versus, our competitors. There's different ideas of what the company should be, or like the industry should be as a whole.
Right. Okay. And so what would you say the unique selling points would be? Like, what are the kind of the ideas and that makes DNA VR unique compared to the competition?
So personally, I haven't been to our competitors, but I know people that have, including customers, and that have told me. I think one of the unique selling points about DNA VR, and the reason that we believe customers should look to go to us, for an enjoyable experience, is with the VR Masters in particular, we try to assign one staff member per booking, as opposed to having one staff member overseeing, 10 different bookings at the same time.
Right. Yes.
It gives the customer a more personal experience with the VR Master. It also assures them that if they are stuck for whatever reason, whether technical issue, whether they're just stuck on a puzzle that they need to try and figure out, whether they're not really grasping the controls, they will have someone there that is able to give them, some guidance, whether it is through, just telling them, okay, the button's here, or whether it's, for 10 minutes trying to explain how to move. They can be assured that their money, is being well spent. They're not just paying however much for an hour and just, figuring stuff out on their own. They can do that, but if they did need someone to give them a hand, then they can rely on us to do that. And I think that's one of the biggest things about DNA VR is the customer service that we provide. Again, I always like to, especially when training staff, I like to kind of let them know that, imagine if like your parents were playing, here at DNA VR. Surely they've probably never played a video game in their life. They probably don't really understand VR that well. You would want someone to be patient with them and to be able to guide them through the entire process, no matter how many times they ask you for help. Whether they ask you for help once And it's kind of like, okay, yeah, just press this button. Okay, cool. Or whether they're just like, I'm really not understanding this. You need to be able to stand by their side and guide them through. Remember, these are like paying customers. They need to be able to enjoy the experience. Because a lot of the time, like, they enjoy the visuals, they enjoy everything about, the escape room or the games, but what happens is they just don't completely grasp the controls. Again, with our arcade session and the controllers, there's 5 buttons on each controller. It can get very overwhelming. So I think being able to essentially handhold a customer through the entire experience, whether it's a group of 6 or a group of 2 or even just a single player, I think that's one thing that really separates us from the pack, is being able to give a more personable experience, as opposed to being able to just have 100 monitors in front of you and only be able to help when someone asks, oh, I need help. Especially for one staff member, that can be quite overwhelming. I think having one staff member per 1, 2, maybe 3 bookings, I think is the way forward. Feels more personable. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I really like that approach as well. Then the customers feel at home, and the game masters know exactly what to do, and they're not all over the place. So yeah, I really like that approach. And on the topic of the controllers and stuff, what kind of hardware do you guys use? I'm pretty sure you use different kinds. And do you also have a favorite favorite headset that you use?
So for the booths, at our London venues, we use the HTC Vive Pro 1s. We've been using them for quite a while, and to be completely honest with you, they've been very reliable. Although they're like 3 or 4 or 5 years old, they've been extremely reliable for us. And at our Manchester venue for the booths, we use HTC Vive Pro 2s, and those have also been proven to be quite reliable for us. For the free roam experiences, we use the HTC Vive Focus 3s, which are quite popular among the VRCade community at the moment. Fantastic tracking. The graphics are amazing. They've been very, very good. We used to use the HTC Vive Pro with the wireless attachment, and it's just night and day. Like, the HTC Vive attachment, the wireless attachment, was very problematic for us for a while because it would constantly lose tracking, or because you had to constantly connect it to a power bank. There were always those occasions where a customer would accidentally pull it out, blah, blah, blah. But being able to have everything happen within the headset, and then you just need 2 controllers, no cables, no gimmicks, nothing like that, it's just been phenomenal. So yeah, HTC Vive Pro 1s and 2s are in the booths, and then HTC Vive Focus 3s in the free roaming area.
And do you have a personal favorite, and which headsets do you use at home?
So I personally have a Quest 2 that I've had, I think, since 2021. I use it every now and then. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, it's something that once the kind of novelty wears off, it's just been kind of gathering dust. But I do occasionally bring it out if I have guests that have maybe never tried VR before. I want to show them something cool. Pop them in that, maybe show them Half-Life Alyx, which is definitely one of the best, single-player VR experiences I've ever played in my life. In terms of favorite, I would say the Focus 3s. They just feel like more advanced Quests. Again, I've never tried the Quest 3s. I really want to get my hands on one, but it's just, quite pricey to say the least. And I already have a Quest 2.
Which you don't really use.
I would say...
Which you don't really use, so it would be like, it's hard to justify, isn't it?
So it's hard to justify spending. I don't even know how much it is the funniest thing. But it's hard to justify spending, an X amount on a Quest 3 when I don't really use the Quest 2. At first, I used it quite a bit, and I really enjoyed it. And personally, I used it with my PC, so I would use a virtual desktop to connect it to my PC and play games off of Steam, as opposed to playing everything off the headset itself. But I would say for personal use, the Quest 2 has been phenomenal. But for use at work, I would say the Focus 3s have been game changing, to say the least. And I've been, since we introduced it to the venues, I've been flabbergasted, to be completely honest, to be able to show customers that had been before and tried the old Vive Pros with the wireless attachment that we've upgraded. It's, you're not going to pull out your cables anymore. I think that's been fantastic. So yeah, Vive Focus 3s have been phenomenal.
Yeah, I really also like the Focus 3. Think it's a really comfortable headset, and usually when it works, it just works, and you shouldn't worry at all. So that's really good. On the topic of marketing, do you guys make some videos of the customers, and do you upload it somewhere, or do you have loyalty cards? What are you doing active on the marketing side?
So a lot of our marketing is through social media. So just things like posts. We sometimes have influencers come in and record, footage for their TikToks or Instagrams, which can also help us gain some traction. And a lot of it, funnily enough, is through word of mouth. So a big example of this is on weekends, we typically have a lot of, birthday parties and those sorts of things, kids' birthday parties.
Yeah.
And there's been so many times where, let's just say, a random birthday party comes in, group of kids, ready to play VR. And I always ask, one of the first things I ask is, have you been here before, or have you tried virtual reality before? And a lot of the time as I'll hear, yeah, I was here for, my friend's birthday party. And I'm like, oh, really? Wow, that's incredible. And the fact that then got the parents of that kid to book a birthday party with us for, X amount of kids, 10 plus kids is amazing. So word of mouth is a big thing. Social media posts, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, that sort of stuff, that really does help us out a bit. Influencers, typically they'll come in exchange for, promotion. So they'll come in, they'll play, they'll have their recordings. Either we film them on their phone, or they have VR footage of the games they've been playing, and then they post it on social media in an attempt to bring us more business. These are all things that we feel have worked, really well for us. But yeah, word of mouth is one that surprises me quite a bit, because to be completely honest with you, VR isn't the cheapest experience, but at the same time, being able to basically tell other parents, my kid had a birthday here, it was absolutely fantastic. It's an hour, 2 hours, however long you want to book it for. You literally just leave the kids there. They have a whale of a time. A lot of them want to play Roblox and Minecraft, which sadly we don't have, but we managed to convince them to play other games. And yeah, it's, again, mainly social media is the biggest, obviously, thing there, but I would say word of mouth is pretty close. In terms of loyalty, we do have a loyalty point scheme. So whenever they do book, however much they spend, a certain amount of it is converted to loyalty points, which they can then convert into customer credit, which they can use to then contribute towards a future booking, so that the booking is cheaper. But yeah, that is pretty much it at the moment. We were looking into badges and achievements and that sort of stuff, but it is going to take a little while to kind of figure out, because yeah, as cool as it sounds, it's a lot of work, let's just say that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for our advertisement and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I saw on your website that it's coming soon, the badges and achievements, but like you said, it sounds cool, but the logistics of it and getting it up and running probably take a bit of time.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's sorry, did I interrupt you? Okay.
No.
Are the locations affected by any kind of seasonality? Do you feel anything?
I would say, to be completely honest with you, Battersea, our flagship place, in terms of physical footfall, is a pretty popular location, because it's quite close to the power station, which has recently been repurposed into a shopping center. So we do get a lot of people walking by and coming in and asking questions. In terms of bookings themselves, it does generally depend on the time of the year. Typically, holidays always going to be busy. Half terms, Christmas, those sorts of times will be busy, and then anything after that, it's generally quite random. Like, I remember, as a recent example, I remember last week, I think it was a Monday or Tuesday, we had not too many bookings, to be completely honest with you. It was a Monday, so obviously, quietest day. And then I think when I came in, we had a few bookings. By the end of the day, we had like 12 more bookings out of the thin air, basically. We had quite a few people walking in, and this is on a Monday. So it does generally depend, but I would say for sure, during half terms, during holidays, any kind of seasonal period where, again, it might be Christmas, it might be, half term, summer break, whatever, we do get a lot more business. We do get affected by that quite a bit. After which, people are back to school, that sort of stuff. Especially in like January, just after, December, everyone spent all their Christmas money.
Yeah.
No one has money to, be doing other stuff. Then, yeah, we do obviously have our dry periods as well. But I think that's just like, it's the normal thing, nature of the business, essentially. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you run do you specials and things like that during like January, quieter periods when it's not like half term, like during term time, basically?
Typically not. To be completely honest with you, not really. Like, what we'll try and do is, on occasion, we'll try and release, special discount codes whenever it is approaching the holiday period, because obviously we want more and more people to book. In terms of like specials during the quieter times, not necessarily. Due to, again, this can all be seen on our website, due to our pricing structure, on Mondays to Wednesdays, for instance, it's going to be the cheapest you can ever, hope for when trying to, book an experience. And then obviously our weekends, which is always going to be our busiest periods, we shoot the price up a little bit. But yeah, I think we don't really do anything special. It's something that we could probably look at, doing in the future when it is a little quieter to try and, bring more people in. But I think at the moment it's working out just fine. Yeah.
That's really good that you don't really feel you need to do that and you're getting enough business. Like you said, location is a massive thing. It sounds like you're in a really good place. A lot of arcades that are located around shopping centres or in shopping centres do really well foot flow, say.
Yeah, honestly, Battersea, because when we first opened the Battersea venue, the Battersea Power Station hadn't actually opened yet. As soon as it opened, and I forget when it did, I think it was maybe like 2 years ago, like the latter half of, very end of 2022, I think it might have been. That's when we started to notice, there's a lot of people walking by just kind of looking for stuff to do.
Yes.
And on one hand, it's kind of sad when people walk in and, they want to do something, but we're completely booked out. But on the other hand, we're completely booked out. That's a good thing. We've got business. And being able to kind of go, okay, we're fully booked today, but hey, what's stopping you from coming back tomorrow, next week, whatever. Here's a leaflet, here's a discount code, book online, you can check out all of our experiences, you can come back. So I think it's, give or take. It's good and also bad. It's bad to disappoint a lot of people, because especially kids come in, they're like, oh my God, what is this? And we are completely booked out the entire day. But again, at the same time, it's like, look, your kid can have a birthday party here. Your kid can come here for, an hour, play a bunch of different games, do an escape room, whatever. So yeah, I think like Battersea is definitely like the best location at the moment. Yeah. Obviously our other two venues are also doing quite well. But like being able to be that close to something like the Battersea Power Station, which is, huge, is definitely an advantage for sure.
Definitely, yeah. And I think when people come in and they see it's fully booked, that's going to make them want to come back more, because they see it's popular and they're like, let's try it out. So best of both worlds.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. And I also wanted to ask if there are, throughout the years, have you experienced any of technical hurdles, in regards of your setup, or maybe even something else? Websites crashing, marketing things not working. I don't know if they're, just what you can share with us.
So a lot of it has to do on site, to be completely honest with you. In terms of technical hurdles, there's always going to be tech issues at a venue. No surprise there. But I think especially with the free roam, not so much now, but like, back when, again, we had the Vive Pros with the wireless adapters, or even before that when we had the backpacks, the HP backpacks. Oh my, they were a nightmare, to be completely honest with you. We've definitely have our fair share of technical hitches, let's just say, throughout our operations. We try and deal with it as best as we can. You know, we try and teach our staff to deal with it as best as they can, by, you know, maybe swapping a cable, maybe just taking a look at the headset, maybe just restarting the computer. There's definitely been a lot of technical hurdles in venue itself because of the equipment. And it's not necessarily that the equipment was bad. It's just that it was, you know, it had a few flaws that unfortunately weren't completely, you know, ironed out by the time we got our hands on them. So in terms of like marketing and stuff, I wouldn't say so. But in venue, we've definitely had quite a few hurdles. You know, being able to maybe even source cables sometimes can be a nightmare. You know, and cables aren't cheap in terms of like headset, you know, for the Vive Pros, the cables. I would say so, yeah. Controllers as well, like Vive Pro controllers, they're phenomenal. Like I like the design of them, you know, but they can also be quite flimsy. So yeah, I'd say we've definitely faced a lot of challenges, but again, it's one of those things, just having spares or just being able to, you know, quickly identify the issue and fix it before it becomes a massive problem is huge. Unfortunately, not every time it can be, you know, resolved just as easily as we would like to expect it to, but I would say, yeah, 90% of the time we kind of resolve it like pretty much within, you know, 10 minutes or so.
Any stories of customers throwing around controllers by accident or something like that?
Oh, absolutely. So we still technically do, but within our VRCade catalog, there is a game which you may be familiar with called Superhot. It is the controller destroyer unless you have a massive space. Just because of the nature of the game, you have to reach for weapons, you got to shoot, you got to throw weapons, that kind of stuff. People forget they are inside a booth, whether it's a square booth, a circle, whatever. So what tends to happen a lot of the time, same with Creed, which is the boxing game, people get so immersed, which is obviously fantastic, that they just kind of lean forward and just smash a controller, even though every single experience we have customers in, their controllers will be secured to their wrist with a wrist strap. People break controllers all the time. I had one experience in the free roam where they were doing an escape room. They had a Vive controller. They jumped towards the ceiling. They hit the ceiling with the controller, and with the Vive controllers, the ones you've got the, you know, the halo at the top. The halo ended up on the other side of the room, so they were just holding like the bottom half of the Vive Pro controller. And obviously, like, their controller stopped working. They were like, you know, what's happening here? And I didn't want them to feel too bad. It was an honest mistake. So I just said, oh, don't worry about it. I'm just going to swap one out. But seeing that and just trying to figure out in my brain how the hell they hit the controller on the ceiling and it went from, you know, one side of the room to the complete opposite side of the room. And they were just holding essentially just the piece, the bottom half of the controller, which is completely mangled. I've seen it all. But yeah, I would say Superhot and Creed were like controller destroyers. But that one particular experience in the free roam where the guy jumped is probably like the most iconic, because I was just so like confused as to how it happened.
Chan, what was your most iconic moment? Because you've spent a lot of time in the arcade.
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So, I think one of the most iconic moments was probably, and this is like fairly kind of random, but I remember me and a colleague playing Serious Sam. I think it was The Last Hope, which is the VR wave shooter. And I just remember feeling like a kid again in an old school arcade, just playing this game for like 1 hour straight, just laughing at everything, because it's a fairly insane game. It's just about killing stuff. Like literally, it's just everything happens in front of you. You just shoot stuff. And it was a phenomenal moment. I definitely remember my fair share of almost being, injured by customers because they're in the headsets. I tell them to stand still. They're still swinging their controllers, and I've been, hitting the throat. I've been hitting the ribs. Those are definitely moments that are pretty funny. It's hard to say. Like, I feel like a lot of my shifts always have crazy moments that you'll remember for a long, long time. Whether it's because a customer does something funny, or whether a staff member, or whether it's myself, whether I do something silly. But I would say, yeah, definitely, probably one of the most iconic moments was being able to play Serious Sam on shift. Obviously, there were no customers around, and me and my colleague just played it for a straight hour. This was probably back in 2019, 2020, and just having the time of my life. Honestly, it was fantastic.
Sounds awesome. I haven't played it yet. They always go and sell the Serious Sam's games, that I never actually picked any one of them up. So
yeah, they do. Like, I remember personally, I picked up a bundle. I think it was on Steam, Serious Sam Collection. It was like 70% off or something like that. The Last Hope is quite unique in the fact that it is a stationary wave shooter, whereas the rest of the series is kind of like, like a Doom or a Duke Nukem, where you're just constantly running around. So it's a little less crazier in that aspect, but I think because we used to run it back then, it was just so simple to play. Like, you just really needed to shoot and point. You didn't have to move and all that stuff. You just select a weapon, you get power-ups, you earn money. You can then buy more power-ups, more weapons. There's bosses, there's different planets, different enemies. So I think, yeah, like Serious Sam as a franchise in general was amazing, but The Last Hope was beautiful, beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah. Any plans for the future that you can share with us for DNA VR, or maybe even something that you're personally looking forward to in the next few years in the world of VR?
So I would say things that I'm personally looking forward to, and I think most of the team is looking forward to, is always new experiences, particularly with the free roam, because I think that is the future of VR, is free roaming. It is quite difficult for us just because I am the games and experiences manager, so I'm always trying to outsource, different types of experiences that we could have at our arcade that we can share with customers. With the free roaming in particular, a lot of experiences require a very large space or require a specific set of hardware. But I think that is currently what we are lacking on at the moment, is diversity within the escape room. Yeah, we've got, escape rooms, we've got shooters, that kind of stuff. But if we were to be able to have more things in the free roam, I think that'd be phenomenal. And I think in particular, yeah, free roam, even more types of free roam shooters, not just zombies, maybe aliens or robots, anything, any sort of style of shooters like that, or anything else, even educational stuff, I think it'd be fantastic. So I think in future we're definitely looking to expand our library. Obviously, the main goal would be to expand even further in terms of like being able to have more venues. Hey, we don't even have to stop at England. We could go global. We could go to America, for instance, or Asia. I think that'd be fantastic. And I think that's always the goal, is to expand and obviously have a global outreach. But for me personally, I think like having more experiences to be able to offer customers, especially with the free roam being something that, again, it's not new, but like, I think with most arcades, like, the free roam is one of the biggest selling points because you don't have any cables whatsoever. I think that's a big thing that kind of annoys people, is playing but having, constantly being tethered, being able to freely move around with your legs and not having to worry about a cable and pulling you and that kind of stuff. I definitely think the free roam is absolutely the future. So from a business standpoint, I would say, yeah, expanding, obviously. But from a personal standpoint, I would say having more in the free roam is a given, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. What pretty much every arcade that's come on here has said is free roam, basically. And everyone always asks, if you're making a game, is it going to have free roam? That's one of the first things I ever ask. Isn't that right, Mr. Chan? You've heard it a few times, I'm sure. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
I am sorry. Definitely in the Discord channel and stuff, we also get personally these kind of questions. So yeah, free roam is asked a lot. And I mean, I completely agree. It is just so much more immersive and so much more fun to play even the same game in free roam. So yeah, I would also say I'm pretty much looking forward to more games in free roam.
Yes, I played Free Roam VR once. That was with Chun, and it was great fun. Otherwise, it's just me in my little space in my home, and it's not the same. I really do want to knock some walls down and build my own little Free Roam arcade one day. But yes, Chris, thank you very much for coming on. It's been great talking to you, and you have quite a bit of experience within the VR arcade. So it's been really good fun, and thank you very much, Mr. Chan, for being a lovely co-host as always.
Yeah, thank you, Serge. Thank you, Chris, for being here. It was a really fun episode, and thanks for sharing everything that you know, and that you experienced.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure, and good luck with everything else.
Really appreciate you coming on, Chris, and don't forget, everyone, to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the podcast, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone. See ya.